Hi, my name is Jaden, and I decided to do my 1 week literature unit on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and I made this for a second grade class. So, to start my literature focus unit, for day one, I started with like a pre reading, which focuses on the fluency. So, the teacher would first introduce weather to her students by discussing what the current weather is outside. And then she would come back inside and have them all come and sit on the carpet, and she would read a poem to the students. So this would model and show accuracy and how to show expression, reading speed, and fluency to the students. Then they would have a small class discussion about how the teacher reads the poem and whether she was reading fast or slow or with voice fluctuations based on what the poem is expressing. So if it's a sad poem, she would read sadly, and if it was a happy poem, she would read a little more happily. In the unit, there are 3 other poems as well. I put them at the bottom of our text, and they're in the annotated books area of the unit. And the poems are broken up into different grade levels, so below grade level, at grade level, and above grade level. And the teacher will read all 3 of these poems out to the class and then break the students up into small groups. And then she'll pass out 1 poem per group, and she'll make the groups according to where she believes the students are placed in their reading level. So if they're above average reading level, then she'll give them the harder poem. The students will read this poem 3 or 4 times each, and then they'll discuss what the poem is about, and then they'll also discuss how to read the poem and focus on each element of fluency. Then the students will write their own poems about weather and with their small groups as a little small group and read them out loud to the class. And this will help the teacher to assess each child's fluency skills. This activity helps to determine whether or not the students are able to grasp phonemic awareness, phonetics, spelling, and vocabulary. So moving on to day 2, it focuses more on comprehension. This is the day where all the students will actually be reading the book. The teacher will read to the students, and the teacher will use a document camera so that the students can see the words as she points to them while she's reading. After reading the book to the students will be going over the responding stage. The students and the teacher will have a grand conversation, which is part of our things that we've been learning about. And this will be discussing the key ideas, key details, and just mainly what happened in the book. And then we're going to be answering 5 comprehension questions that the teacher will ask. And this helps the teacher to assess whether or not the students are understanding what the book was about, and just main comprehension understanding. And then the students will be formally assessed by using exit slips to go to recess or lunch. And these exit slips will have 1 question from the discussion on it so that the teacher can check for full understanding from the students. So moving on to day 3, it's responding and writing activities, so focusing on phonemic awareness. So the teacher will place the students into small groups again and have them continue their discussion on the book from yesterday. So they'll be responding to 5 different questions. So the 4 main ones are: what was their favorite part, what was their least favorite part of the book, and then what food that they would want to fall from the sky, and then what part of the book were they a little bit more frightened of. And then pausing after the 4th question, the teacher would then ask what the students thought the moral of the story was, and then have a little small discussion, and then they would reaffirm what the moral of the story is, to be careful of what you wish for and to be grateful for what you already have. The students will discuss in their small groups what one thing that they are grateful is, and then a little bit later they're going to be adding that on to the back of their mobile. So after the discussion, the students will be making a reading log in the form of a mobile, and the students will be making a cloud on it, and then the cloud will have different foods that come off of it, and on the foods they'll write a sentence of what, or on the cloud they're going to be writing a sentence of what each food means, and then on the back side of the cloud they're going to be putting one thing that they're grateful for. That kind of ties into what the moral of the story is. And so the teacher will assess the students by going through each mobile and seeing the students' answer to all their questions. And they can check for complete sentences, punctuation, and all of the other standards that are supposed to be met with writing. So moving on to day 4, more exploring phonics and spelling and vocabulary. The students will start out by doing a word wall with a mini lesson with the teacher. The word wall will have different words from the books as well as any sight words that they can find. And on the mini lesson will be the teacher going over the prefixes and suffixes and how to know what the root word are. So we'll go over so like undesirable, they know un is not, and then desirable means they want something. So it means it's not something that they want. So the teacher would also add these words to the word wall. And then the students would go back to their desk and write 3 different sentences that make up a short story that has at least 2 words from the word wall in each sentence. The teacher would then collect these short stories and assess and formally grade them. Afterwards, students would be going over vocabulary words and what a compound word is and if they can find it in the book. The teacher would then explain how they can break compound words into different parts and separate the 2 words. So after this, the teacher would pass out a worksheet and the students would be practicing more compound words and breaking them apart and putting them back together. And then on the back side, they would be writing down what the word means. And afterwards, the teacher would collect these worksheets and assess and grade them. So that's just another way that they're able to assess where the students are at. And the students would be assessed in multiple different ways and steps during the week. So for example, by exit slips, by their poem on how their writing was, different oral reading activities, participation, and by comprehension questions that they're answering. Below I also put a example of a worksheet, a compound word worksheet that they would be doing. So moving on to day 5, this is their big essential question. So the teacher would tell the students that they are going to be writing up a response to the big question for the week. The students' big comprehension question for the week is, would you like to live in a town where food fell from the sky? Why or why not? And then they would explain. The students would be assessed formally through a rubric. Each student's response would be 1 to 2 paragraphs with 4 to 5 sentences in each paragraph explaining their responses. And I wrote down different standards. I think we had 5 in here. So the first one was decoding words with common prefixes and suffixes. The second was knowing spelling sounds correspondence for additional common vowel teams. The third was reading with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. The fourth was reading grade level text with purpose and understanding, and then the fifth was reading grade level text orally with accuracy, appropriate rate, and expression on successive reading. And then we had the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball book, and then also the 3 poems for the students, Windy Day, Sizzling Summer, and Super Spring, and I listed those below, as well as the first poem that the teacher reads separately, showing the examples, and that one's titled 4 Seasons. So hopefully I answered all of the questions, but I really enjoyed this activity. I thought it was really fun.